There is something you have felt your entire life, something you could never fully explain. A quiet tension, a subtle disconnect, a question that followed you from childhood into adulthood, whispering in moments of silence. Why do I feel like I don't belong anywhere? You tried to ignore it. You tried to adjust. You tried to fit yourself into spaces that seem natural for everyone else, but unnatural for you. You laughed when they laughed. You adapted when they expected you to adapt. You even shrank parts of yourself just to feel accepted, just to feel normal. But no matter how hard you tried, something never clicked. And now, in this very moment, a truth is rising to the surface, one that may shift everything you thought you knew about yourself. Because what if I told you that feeling was never rejection? What if it was recognition? You see, the voice speaking now, through the authority of Archangel Michael, is not here to comfort your confusion. It is here to reveal your calling. He speaks, not in softness, but in divine clarity. You were never designed to belong to one place because you were assigned to impact many. The discomfort you felt sitting in rooms where others felt at home, that unease in conversations that seemed effortless to everyone else, that internal pull telling you, there's more than this, there's something beyond this, that was not insecurity. That was activation. There were moments, yes, you remember them, when you looked around and felt like you were watching life from the outside. Like everyone else received a manual on how to exist and you didn't. Like they spoke a language you understood, but never fully belonged to. And it made you question yourself. Is something wrong with me? Why can't I just be like them? Why do I always feel different? But hear this now, and hear it deeply. Different was never your flaw. It was your assignment. Because God, in His infinite wisdom, will never trap a global calling inside a local identity. He will never allow someone who is meant to move across atmospheres, across cultures, across dimensions of influence to feel fully comfortable in one confined space. So He allowed you to feel the misfit, not to break you but to prevent you from settling. There were friendships that didn't fully align, environments that drained you instead of fueling you, moments where you laughed externally but felt empty internally. And each time, your spirit whispered something you couldn't ignore. This is not it. That whisper was divine. That restlessness, sacred. That inability to stay where others stayed comfortably, intentional. Because while others were building roots in one place, you were being shaped to carry movement. While others were learning how to belong, you were being prepared to bridge worlds. And this is why your journey has felt so different. You weren't meant to be understood early. You weren't meant to be validated quickly. You weren't meant to follow predictable paths. Because your life is not a pattern to repeat, it is a mandate to reveal. And now, something is shifting. Even as you listen to this, there is a stirring within you. A recognition, a quiet realization that maybe, just maybe, you were never lost, you were being led differently. Archangel Michael stands in authority and declares, "Stop trying to fit into places I never designed you for. You are not misplaced, you are multi-assigned." Let that settle into your spirit. Every moment you felt out of place was actually divine redirection. Every time you were overlooked was spiritual protection. Every space that couldn't hold you was confirmation that your calling was bigger than the room. And now, the question is no longer why don't I belong? The question is, where is God preparing me to go? Because July 1, 2026 is not just a day. It is a line between confusion and clarity, between shrinking and stepping forward, between trying to belong and finally understanding why you were never meant to. This is your awakening moment, and what comes next will reveal just how deep this calling truly goes. Type IMSET apart in the comments if you feel this message. Blessing code 1414 is now surrounding you. Before you ever questioned your identity, before you ever noticed the distance between you and others, before you ever felt the weight of being different, something had already been decided about you in the spiritual realm. You were marked, not by people, not by circumstances, but by God Himself. And this mark did not come with applause. It did not come with explanation. It came quietly, deeply, invisibly, woven into your spirit long before your mind could comprehend it. That is why, even as a child, there were moments you could not explain. Moments where you felt older than your environment. Moments where your thoughts ran deeper than the conversations around you. Moments where you sensed things others overlooked, felt things others dismissed, questioned things others accepted without hesitation. You were not imagining that. You were remembering who you are. Archangel Michael speaks now with unwavering authority, cutting through every layer of confusion you have carried. You were set apart before you were ever introduced to the world. Your difference did not begin in experience. It began in design. This is why your life has never followed a normal pattern. This is why even when you tried to blend in, something within you resisted. It was not rebellion. It was recognition. There was a spiritual imprint placed on your life that refused to let you become common when you were created for something uncommon. And that mark of separation, it came with a cost. Because being set apart often feels like being set aside. There were times when you felt overlooked, as if others were chosen before you. Times when doors opened easily for people around you, while you had to wait, struggle, or walk alone. Times when you wondered why your path felt slower, heavier, more complicated. But what you could not see then is what is being revealed to you now. Your delay was not denial. It was protection. God was guarding something within you that could not be exposed too early. Because what you carry is not ordinary. It is not meant for small circles or limited spaces. It is not meant to be shaped by environments that cannot understand it. And so, before the world could define you, God separated you. He allowed you to feel different so you would never fully attach to what could not sustain your purpose. There were relationships that never fully settled, connections that seemed promising but faded, environments that felt right for a moment but eventually revealed their limitations. And each time you felt the shift. Each time, something inside you whispered, "This is not where you stay." That whisper was not instability. That whisper was divine direction. Because when you are marked for something greater, you cannot build permanence in temporary spaces. You cannot root yourself in places that were only meant to pass through your life, not define it. And this is where many misunderstand their journey. They think something is wrong because nothing seems to last. They think they are the problem because they cannot settle. But Archangel Michael reveals the truth with piercing clarity. What leaves your life was never meant to hold your destiny. I remove what cannot carry your calling. Let that settle into your spirit. You were not rejected. You were redirected. You were not overlooked. You were preserved. You were not forgotten. You were hidden. Hidden until the right time. Hidden until the right alignment. Hidden until the weight of your assignment could be revealed without being distorted by the wrong environment. And now, that time is approaching. Because the same mark that separated you is the same mark that will distinguish you. The same difference that made you feel isolated is the same difference that will open doors others cannot access. The same depth that made you feel misunderstood is the same depth that will allow you to connect across boundaries, cultures, and spaces you have never even stepped into before. This is the global imprint on your life. You were never meant to be confined to one identity, one role, one place. You were designed to move, to adapt, to carry something that transcends limitations. And that is why God could not allow you to become too comfortable anywhere, because comfort would have cost you your calling. And now, you are beginning to see it. The patterns, the shifts, the way your life has unfolded differently from those around you. It was never random. It was intentional. Every separation was strategic. Every ending was purposeful. Every moment of feeling alone was actually a moment of being set apart for something greater than you could see at the time. Archangel Michael stands firm and declares, "Do not mourn what could not remain." It was never designed to go where you are going. You are stepping into a realization now that will change how you view your entire past. What you once saw as loss, you will begin to see as alignment. What you once felt as isolation, you will recognize as preparation. What you once questioned, you will now understand. You were chosen to stand apart so you could eventually stand above limitation. And this is only the beginning. Type "I am chosen" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1122 is now activated. There is a part of your story that you have wrestled with more than anything else, and it is not the rejection, not the confusion, not even the feeling of being different. It is the isolation, the moments where everything became quiet, the seasons where people faded, the times when you found yourself alone, not by choice, not by desire, but by what felt like force. You reached out, and there was no response. You tried to reconnect, and something always felt off. You attempted to rebuild, but the same pattern repeated itself. And slowly, a question formed inside you that you never fully voiced. Why does this keep happening to me? But what if the very thing you thought was working against you was actually working for you? Archangel Michael speaks with piercing clarity in this moment. Your isolation was never abandonment. It was instruction. It was training. It was preparation for a weight you could not carry in distraction. You see, when God assigns a global mandate to a life, He cannot allow that life to be constantly surrounded by noise. He cannot allow that mind to be shaped by every opinion. He cannot allow that spirit to depend on constant validation. Because what you carry must be rooted in Him, not in people, not in approval, not in comfort. So He introduces separation, not as punishment but as positioning. Think about it. There were seasons where everything slowed down, where your social circles became smaller, where your environment became quieter, where you had more time with your thoughts than you ever wanted. And in those moments, it felt uncomfortable. It felt unnatural. It felt like something was missing. But in truth, something was being built. Because in isolation, you began to hear differently. You began to think differently. You began to observe things you once ignored. You started recognizing patterns in people, in conversations, in environments. You started seeing beneath the surface. You started questioning things that once seemed normal. It was not loneliness. That was sharpening. There were nights where you sat with your own thoughts, trying to make sense of everything, trying to understand why your path felt so different, trying to figure out where you truly belong. And in those quiet moments, something subtle was happening. You were being aligned. Because clarity does not come from crowded spaces. It comes from stillness. And God needed you still long enough to hear Him. There were truths about yourself that you could not have discovered in constant distraction. There were parts of your identity that could not have surfaced in environments that expected you to conform. There were insights, perspectives, and awareness that could only emerge when you were removed from the noise. So the isolation was necessary. Archangel Michael declares, I pulled you away not to weaken you, but to strengthen your discernment. I removed voices so you could recognize mine. And now, when you look back, you can begin to see it. You are not the same person you were before those quiet seasons. Your thinking is deeper. Your awareness is sharper. Your tolerance for superficial connections is lower. Your desire for truth is stronger. You no longer move the way you used to move, because you no longer see the way you used to see. That transformation did not happen in crowds. It happened in solitude, because isolation trained you in ways people never could. It taught you how to stand alone without collapsing. It taught you how to think independently. It taught you how to trust your internal guidance instead of external noise. It taught you how to observe before reacting, how to discern before connecting, how to move with intention instead of impulse. And most importantly, it taught you who you are when no one else is around. That is power. Because a person who knows themselves in solitude cannot be easily influenced in crowds. And this is why your preparation had to happen this way. You are not being shaped for small environments. You are not being prepared for limited influence. You are not being trained for spaces where everyone thinks the same, moves the same, and sees the same. You are being prepared to move across different spaces, different cultures, different energies without losing yourself. And that requires a level of internal stability that can only be built in isolation. But here is the shift you must understand now. The season of isolation was not meant to be permanent. It was preparation, not destination. Archangel Michael speaks again. Do not confuse where you were trained with where you are called to go. Because now, something is changing. The same solitude that once felt heavy will begin to make sense. The same separation that once felt painful will begin to reveal its purpose. You will start to see how every quiet moment, every disconnected season, every time you felt alone was actually building the foundation for what comes next. You were not being hidden to disappear. You were being hidden to develop. And now, the development is turning into direction. You are stepping out of preparation and into movement. Type I am ready in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 333 is now activated. As this truth settles into your spirit, understand this. Every moment of isolation you endured was not wasted. It was a seed. And now, those seeds are beginning to rise, not just in your life, but in the lives of others who are still searching for clarity in their silence. When you support this mission through Super Thanks or PayPal, you are not giving to a voice. You are fueling a movement that reaches souls standing in the same quiet battles you once faced. Scripture says, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy," and this is your moment to turn your past isolation into someone else's revelation. If this message stirred something deep within you, then this is your signal. Step forward in faith. Release your seed. Because what you give today becomes light in someone else's darkness, and heaven will not overlook your obedience. There was a season, perhaps longer than you care to admit, where the greatest battle you faced was not external. It was internal. It was a quiet war within your own mind, where questions echoed louder than answers, where clarity felt distant and confusion felt constant, where you looked at yourself and wondered, who am I really? Not in a surface-level way, not in a casual moment of curiosity, but in a deep, unsettling way that made you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. You tried to define yourself based on your environment. You tried to shape your identity around what people expected, what seemed normal, what appeared to work for others. You observed how they spoke, how they acted, how they navigated life, and you attempted to mirror it, hoping that somewhere in that imitation, you would finally feel aligned. But something always felt off. Even when you succeeded on the outside, something felt disconnected on the inside. Even when people accepted you, still felt unseen. Even when you played the role well, it never felt like it truly belonged to you. And that is where the identity crisis began. Archangel Michael speaks with unwavering authority into this moment. You questioned yourself because you were trying to define a global identity within a local framework. What you carry cannot be understood by limited environments. Let that truth settle deeply. Because the confusion you experienced was not because you lacked identity. It was because your identity was too expansive to be contained by the spaces you were trying to fit into. You were never meant to become a version of yourself that only works in one place, one mindset, one environment. You were created to move across different dimensions of experience, carrying something that adapts without losing its essence. And when you tried to compress that into something smaller, something more acceptable, something easier to explain, it created friction within you. That friction felt like doubt. It felt like inconsistency. It felt like you were constantly shifting, constantly evolving, constantly unsure. But in reality, you were expanding. There were moments when you looked at your life and thought, why can't I just settle into one version of myself? Moments when you wished you could be simpler, more predictable, easier to understand, even to yourself. But every time you tried to confine who you were, something inside you resisted. That resistance was not instability. It was truth. Because your identity was never meant to be static. It was designed to be dynamic, to grow, to stretch, to evolve as you move through different spaces and different assignments. But without understanding that, it felt like you were losing yourself instead of discovering yourself. And so, you questioned everything. Your decisions, your direction, your purpose, even your worth. There were times when you compared yourself to others and felt like you were behind, like you were missing something they had figured out. You saw their clarity, their confidence, their defined paths, and you wondered why your journey felt so uncertain, so undefined, so fluid. But what you did not realize then is what is being revealed to you now. They were building within boundaries. You were being prepared beyond them. Archangel Michael declares, do not measure your path by those who were assigned to remain in one place. You were never given a single lane. You were given movement. That is why your process looks different. That is why your identity felt harder to grasp. That is why your journey required more questioning, more reflection, more internal searching. Because you were not just discovering who you are. You were uncovering the depth of what you carry. And depth cannot be rushed. It cannot be simplified. It cannot be reduced to something easy. It must be explored, layer by layer, experience by experience, until it reveals itself fully. And now, you are beginning to reach that point. The confusion is starting to make sense. The questions are starting to connect. The pieces of your identity that once felt scattered are beginning to align into something clearer, something stronger, something more grounded. You are no longer trying to become someone else. You are beginning to recognize yourself. And that recognition changes everything. Because once you understand that your identity was never meant to fit into one mold, you stop forcing yourself into spaces that cannot hold you. You stop questioning your uniqueness. You stop shrinking to match expectations that were never designed for you. Instead, you begin to stand in who you are. Fully, confidently, without apology. Archangel Michael speaks once more. The identity you searched for was never lost. It was hidden beneath expectations that were never yours to carry. Release them, and you will see yourself clearly. And this is where the shift happens. You are no longer asking, "Who am I supposed to be?" You are stepping into, "This is who I am." And that clarity is the foundation for everything that comes next. Type "I know who I am" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 909 is now activated. There is a realization rising within you now, one that may feel both freeing and unsettling at the same time. Because everything you have experienced up to this point, every moment of not fitting in, every season of isolation, every internal battle with your identity, it all points to one truth you can no longer ignore. You were never meant to stay in one place. Not physically, not mentally, not spiritually. And that is where many have misunderstood you. They expected consistency in a way that looked familiar. They expected you to settle into roles that made sense to them. They expected you to build a life that followed a pattern they could recognize, measure, and explain. But your life has never followed patterns. It has followed movement. Archangel Michael speaks now with undeniable authority. You were not created for confinement. You were created for assignment. And your assignment does not belong to one place. It spans many. Let that truth take root. Because the frustration you felt when things did not last, the restlessness that surfaced when life became too predictable, the inner pull that told you, "There's more beyond this," it was never instability. It was instruction. You were being guided away from permanence in places that were never meant to define you. There were moments when you thought, "Maybe I just need to commit here. Maybe I just need to stay, to build, to settle like everyone else." But every time you tried to anchor yourself too deeply into one environment, something shifted. Opportunities changed, connections dissolved. Circumstances redirected you. And it left you wondering, why does nothing stay consistent? But now the answer is being revealed. Because your calling is not local. It is global. And global does not only mean geography. It means influence. It means reach. It means the ability to move between different types of people, different ways of thinking, different environments without losing your essence. You were designed to understand multiple perspectives, to connect across boundaries, to carry something that resonates in more than one space, and that cannot be developed if you remain confined to one experience. So God allowed movement. He allowed transitions. He allowed change. Because every place you passed through gave you something you needed. Every environment you entered expanded your awareness. Every connection you experienced added another layer to your understanding. Even the ones that did not last. Even the ones that ended abruptly. Even the ones that left you questioning why they ever happened. They were all part of the mandate. Archangel Michael declares, nothing in your journey was random. Every place you left prepared you for places you have not yet seen. You were collecting pieces. Pieces of understanding. Pieces of wisdom. Pieces of perspective. And now those pieces are forming something powerful. Because when you step into your true assignment, you will not speak from theory. You will speak from experience. You will not connect with only one type of person. You will resonate with many. You will not be limited to one way of thinking. You will understand multiple dimensions. That is what makes your calling different. That is why your life could not look like everyone else's. Because your assignment requires range. But here is where the shift must happen now. You must stop interpreting movement as instability. You must stop viewing change as failure. You must stop seeing your journey as inconsistent. Because what you have been calling inconsistency is actually expansion. You were not losing direction. You were gaining capacity. Capacity to adapt. Capacity to understand. Capacity to move without becoming lost. And that capacity is what will allow you to step into spaces others cannot navigate. Because when your calling begins to unfold fully, you will find yourself in environments that require flexibility, awareness, and depth. You will be placed in positions where you must move between different energies, different expectations, different cultures, and still remain grounded in who you are. That is not something you can learn overnight. That is something that must be built over time. And that is exactly what your life has been doing. Building you, preparing you, expanding you, so that when the moment comes you are ready. Archangel Michael speaks again. Do not try to shrink your calling into something comfortable. What I placed within you is meant to stretch across boundaries. And this is where your perspective must elevate. You are not someone who could not find where they belong. You are someone who was never meant to belong to only one place. You carry something that allows you to belong everywhere. Not because you fit in, but because you understand. Because you see. Because you move with awareness. And that is your power. The very thing that once made you feel disconnected is the very thing that will allow you to connect on a level others cannot. But this realization also comes with responsibility. Because once you understand that your life is not meant to be confined, you can no longer limit yourself to spaces that restrict your growth. You can no longer settle into environments that suppress your range. You can no longer ignore the pull that continues to guide you forward. Because that pull is your mandate. And it is calling you into something greater than you have ever experienced before. Type "I accept my calling" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 515 is now activated. There is something about you that has always set you apart in ways you could never fully explain. It is not just how you think. It is not just how you move. It is not just how you see the world. It is how deeply you feel. You have felt things in rooms that no one else seemed to notice. You have sensed shifts in energy before a word was ever spoken. You have walked into environments and immediately known when something was off, even when everything looked normal on the surface. And for a long time, you questioned that. You wondered why you could not just ignore things like others did. Why you could not detach easily. Why certain conversations lingered in your mind longer than they should have. Why certain people affected your energy so strongly, even when they said all the right things. It made you feel overwhelmed at times. It made you feel like you were too much, too sensitive, too aware, too emotionally intense. But what you have misunderstood is now being revealed. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity that cuts through every doubt you have carried. What you call sensitivity is not weakness. It is spiritual perception. You were not designed to overlook what others ignore. You are designed to discern. Let that truth settle. Because your ability to feel deeply was never meant to burden you. It was meant to guide you. You were created with a heightened awareness that goes beyond logic, beyond surface-level observation, beyond what is seen and heard in the natural. You pick up on intention. You recognize inconsistencies. You sense alignment or misalignment without needing full explanation. And that is not something everyone carries. That is something assigned. There were moments when you tried to suppress it, when you told yourself you were overthinking, when you convinced yourself to ignore your instincts just to maintain peace, just to keep connections, just to avoid conflict. But every time you ignored it, something within you felt unsettled. Because you were going against your design. Archangel Michael declares, every time you dismissed your perception, you delayed your protection. I gave you awareness so you would not walk blindly. Your sensitivity is not random. It is strategic. Because the calling on your life requires you to navigate spaces where everything is not as it appears. It requires you to move through environments where truth is not always spoken directly. It requires you to engage with people who may present one thing outwardly but carry something entirely different internally. And without discernment you would be vulnerable. So God gave you depth. He gave you the ability to feel beyond words, to read beyond actions, to understand beyond explanations. But with that gift comes responsibility. Because if you do not understand it, you will misinterpret it. You will think you are overwhelmed when you are actually discerning. You will think you are emotional when you are actually perceiving. You will think something is wrong with you when in reality, something is right. There were times when you absorbed energy that was not yours. Times when you walked away from conversations feeling drained without knowing why. Times when you carried emotions that did not originate from you. And it confused you. But now you are beginning to see it clearly. You were not always feeling your own emotions. You were picking up on the atmosphere around you. And without understanding that, it became heavy. But now that changes. Because awareness brings control. Archangel Michael speaks again. Do not carry what you were only meant to recognize. Discernment shows you what is present. It does not require you to hold it. This is where your power begins to activate. Because once you understand that your sensitivity is a tool, not a burden, you begin to use it differently. You stop internalizing everything. You stop questioning your instincts. You stop dismissing what you feel just because others cannot see it. Instead, you trust it. You honor it. You allow it to guide your decisions, your connections, your movements. And this is critical for where you are going. Because your global mandate requires more than knowledge. It requires perception. You will be placed in spaces where words do not tell the full story. Where environments shift quickly. Where people operate from hidden intentions. And your ability to feel, to sense, to discern will be the very thing that keeps you aligned. That is why this gift had to be developed early. Even if it felt uncomfortable. Even if it felt overwhelming. Even if it made you feel different. Because difference is what protects you. And now, you are stepping into a level of awareness where you no longer fight your sensitivity. You refine it. You strengthen it. You use it. Archangel Michael declares with final authority in this moment, what you feel is not random. It is revelation. Learn to trust it, and it will lead you exactly where you are meant to go. And now, something shifts within you. You are no longer asking, why am I like this? You are beginning to understand, this is how I am guided. Type I trust my discernment in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 818 is now activated. There was a moment in your life, a season you cannot forget, where everything you once relied on began to fall apart. Not slowly, not gently, but in a way that felt sudden, disorienting, and deeply personal. Things that once felt stable started shifting. Relationships changed without clear explanation. Plans you thought were certain began to collapse. Paths you had committed to no longer made sense. And no matter how hard you tried to hold things together, it felt like something beyond your control was pulling everything apart. And in that moment, you asked the question that many never say out loud, why is this happening to me now? Because it did not feel like timing. It felt like disruption. It felt like loss. It felt like everything you had built, internally and externally, was being challenged all at once. But what you perceived as everything falling apart was actually everything falling into place. Archangel Michael speaks with unwavering authority into this exact moment. What I could not align, I allowed to break. What I could not transform, I removed. What I could not use, I dismantled. Let that truth settle deeply within you. Because the breaking point was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to release you. There were things in your life that had reached their limit. Patterns that could no longer continue. Connections that could no longer align. Versions of yourself that could no longer survive in the next level you were being called into. But because you are someone who holds on, who tries to make things work, who gives time, energy, and effort, you would not have walked away easily. So life shifted for you. Not to hurt you, but to move you. There were moments when you tried to fix what was breaking. You tried to have conversations, to restore connections, to rebuild what felt like it was slipping away. But no matter what you did, the outcome remained the same. Things kept ending. Things kept changing. Things kept moving away from you. And it forced you into a place you did not choose but needed. A place of surrender. Because when everything external becomes uncertain, you are left with one option: a look inward. And that is where the real shift began. Archangel Michael declares, your breaking point was your turning point. It forced you to release what was comfortable so you could receive what was aligned. In that season, you were stripped of distractions, stripped of illusions, stripped of the belief that everything around you would remain the same. And in that stripping, clarity began to emerge. You started seeing things differently. You started recognizing what you had overlooked before. You began to understand that some things were never meant to last, no matter how much you wanted them to. And slowly your perspective shifted. What once felt like loss began to feel like release. What once felt like confusion began to feel like direction. What once felt like chaos began to reveal order. Because when God begins to move you into alignment, it does not always feel peaceful at first. Sometimes it feels like everything is being taken away. But what is actually happening is everything misaligned is being removed. That breaking point was not random. It was precise. It happened exactly when it needed to happen. Because you had reached a level where staying the same was no longer an option. Growth demanded change. And change required disruption. You could not carry your next level while holding on to your previous one. So something had to give. And it did. Archangel Michael speaks again. Do not grieve what was removed in your breaking. It could not walk with you into your becoming. That moment, that season, that experience that felt like everything was collapsing, it was actually the beginning of your real alignment. Because from that point forward, you began to move differently. You became more aware of what you allowed into your life. You became more selective with your energy. You became less willing to force what did not naturally align. You stopped chasing what was not meant for you, and you started paying attention to what was. That is transformation. Not loud, not instant, but undeniable. And now, when you look back, you can see it clearly. If that breaking had not happened, you would still be in the same place, thinking the same way, holding on to the same things, remaining in environments that could not support who you are becoming. But because it happened, you move it. You shifted. You evolved. And now, you are standing at a point where you are no longer who you were before, but not fully who you are becoming yet. You are in transition. And this transition is sacred, because it is leading you directly into the next phase of your calling. Type "I embrace the shift" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 727 is now activated. There comes a moment, not loud, not dramatic, but unmistakably clear, when everything you once questioned about yourself begins to make sense. It does not happen all at once. It unfolds widely, gradually, like pieces of a puzzle finally aligning after years of confusion. And in that moment, something shifts inside you. You stop asking, "Why am I different?" And you begin to understand, "I was meant to be." This is the awakening, the moment where your perspective changes from doubt to clarity, where your past no longer feels like a series of disconnected experiences, but a carefully designed path leading you to this exact realization. Because suddenly, you can see it. You can see why you never fit in. You can see why certain things never lasted. You can see why your life unfolded the way it did. And instead of feeling lost, you feel aware. Archangel Michael speaks with powerful certainty into this moment. Your difference was never an accident. It was a signal pointing you toward your true assignment. For so long, you tried to interpret your life through the lens of normalcy. You tried to understand your experiences by comparing them to others. You tried to make sense of your journey using expectations that were never designed for you. And that is why it felt confusing. Because you were measuring something unique against something common. But now, that changes. Now, you are beginning to see your life for what it truly is. Intentional. Precise. Guided. Every moment of isolation now looks like preparation. Every moment of confusion now looks like redirection. Every moment of discomfort now looks like alignment. Because you are no longer viewing your life from the outside. You are seeing it from within. And that awareness changes everything. There is a new level of acceptance rising within you. Not forced acceptance. Not something you convinced yourself to believe. But a genuine understanding that who you are is exactly who you were meant to be. You are no longer trying to fix yourself. You are recognizing yourself. And that recognition brings a kind of peace you have not felt before. Because for the first time, you are not resisting your nature. You are embracing it. Archangel Michael declares, the moment you stop resisting your design is the moment your power begins to flow freely. This is where your strength begins to activate. Because when you are no longer trying to fit into something you are not, you free up energy. You free up focus. You free up clarity. You stop forcing connections that do not align. You stop chasing environments that do not resonate. You stop questioning your instincts. And instead you move with certainty. There is a quiet confidence that begins to form. Not loud, not arrogant, not something you need to prove, but something that is simply there. Stable. Grounded. Unshaken. Because it is built on understanding. You now understand why your path required so much change. You now understand why your identity felt so fluid. You now understand why your sensitivity was so strong. You now understand why your breaking point had to happen. It was all leading to this moment. The moment where you wake up to who you are. And once that awakening happens, you cannot go back. You cannot return to confusion. You cannot return to shrinking yourself. You cannot return to ignoring what you now clearly see. Because awareness changes your standard. You begin to expect more alignment, more truth, more clarity, and you begin to naturally distance yourself from anything that does not match that. This is not something you force. It happens automatically, because once you see clearly, you cannot unsee. Archangel Michael speaks again. Your awakening is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of your true movement. And this is where things begin to accelerate. Because now that you understand yourself, you can start stepping into your assignment with intention. You are no longer wandering. You are moving. You are no longer reacting. You are choosing. You are no longer trying to belong. You are beginning to lead. And that is where your presence begins to shift. People start noticing something different about you. Not because you are trying to stand out, but because you are no longer hiding. There is a clarity in how you speak, a confidence in how you move, a sense of direction in how you carry yourself. And it is not forced. It is natural, because it comes from alignment. This is the awakening, and it changes everything. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 222 is now activated. As this awakening settles into your spirit, understand this truth. What God is revealing to you right now is not only for you. It is meant to reach others who are still lost in confusion, still questioning their identity, still searching for clarity in the dark. When you sow into this message through Super Thanks with a PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a channel. You are becoming a vessel that carries light into someone else's awakening. The word declares, those who bring light to others will themselves be filled with light, and this is your moment to step into that flow. I feel led to say this clearly. I am choosing to partner with this mission because I know it is reaching souls beyond what I can see. Let your giving become your obedience. Release your seed now, and watch how heaven multiplies clarity, favor, and direction back into your life. Now that you are awakening, now that you are beginning to see clearly, now that you are no longer questioning your difference, but embracing it, something else begins to surface. Resistance. Not from within this time, but from around you. Because the moment you stop shrinking, the moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you start standing fully in who you are, people notice. And not everyone responds the same way. Some will be drawn to your clarity, but others will be unsettled by it. You have already felt this. The subtle shift in how people speak to you. The way certain conversations become tense when you express your truth. The way some people grow distant without explanation. The way others try to question your decisions, your direction, your change. And it leaves you wondering, why does my growth create distance? But the answer is simple, and it is something you must understand now. Because your evolution exposes what others are not ready to confront within themselves. Archangel Michael speaks with firm authority. Your alignment will reveal misalignment in others. And not everyone is prepared to face what your presence reflects. Let that truth settle. Because the resistance you are experiencing is not random. It is a reaction. A reaction to your clarity. A reaction to your growth. A reaction to the fact that you are no longer operating on the same level you once were. There are people who knew you when you were uncertain, when you were still searching, when you were still adapting to fit into spaces that did not align. And in that version of you, there was familiarity. There was comfort. There was predictability. But now you are different. You speak with more certainty. You move with more intention. You no longer tolerate what once felt normal. And that shift disrupts the dynamic. Because not everyone grows at the same pace. Not everyone evolves at the same time. And when one person changes, it forces others to either grow or distance themselves. And many will choose distance. Not because you did something wrong, but because your presence no longer aligns with where they are. Archangel Michael declares, do not take resistance personally. It is not rejection, it is revelation. Revelation of who is aligned with your next level and who is not. There will be people who misunderstand your silence, who interpret your boundaries as distance, who see your focus as disconnection, who question your decisions because they no longer benefit from the version of you that existed before. And if you are not grounded in your understanding, you will feel pulled to explain yourself, to justify your growth, to soften your clarity, to maintain connections that are no longer aligned. But this is where your awareness must guide you, because not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Not every perception needs to be changed. Not every connection needs to be maintained. Some people are meant to misunderstand you, because their understanding of you was built on a version of you that no longer exists. And trying to hold on to that will pull you backward. Archangel Michael speaks again. Do not return to who you were just to remain connected to those who are not ready for who you are becoming. This is where strength is required. Not the kind of strength that fights, but the kind that stands. The kind that allows you to remain in your truth without needing validation. The kind that allows you to move forward even when others do not fully understand your direction. Because your calling was never dependent on approval. It was built on alignment. And alignment will always cost you something. It may cost you certain relationships. It may cost you familiarity. It may cost you comfort. But what it gives you is far greater. Verity, peace, purpose, and the ability to move freely in your assignment without being weighed down by expectations that no longer serve you. There is also something else you must recognize. Not all resistance comes from negativity. Some of it comes from confusion. From people who simply do not understand your path because it does not look like anything they have seen before. And in those moments you must have discernment. To know when to extend patience and when to create distance. Because your energy cannot be constantly spent trying to translate your journey to those who are not ready to receive it. Your responsibility is not to be understood by everyone. Your responsibility is to remain aligned. Archangel Michael declares with final authority, your path is not meant to be explained to everyone. It is meant to be walked with conviction. And this is where your confidence deepens. Because you begin to realize that misunderstanding is not a sign that you are off track. It is often a sign that you are exactly where you need to be. You are no longer measuring your progress by how many people agree with you. You are measuring it by how aligned you feel within yourself. And that alignment becomes your anchor. So when resistance comes, you do not retreat. You do not shrink. You do not question your direction. You stand. Because now you understand. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be guided and to guide. And that requires a level of separation that not everyone will be comfortable with. But that is the cost of your calling. And it is a cost you are now ready to carry. Type "I stand in my truth" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 919 is now activated. There comes a moment in your journey after the confusion, after the breaking, after the awakening and the resistance, where something within you finally settles. Not into comfort, but into clarity. A quiet, unshakable clarity that no longer needs external confirmation. This is alignment. It does not arrive loudly. It does not announce itself with sudden perfection. It comes as a deep internal knowing, a sense that you are no longer fighting yourself, no longer questioning every step, no longer trying to become something you are not. Instead, you begin to move as who you are, fully, and for the first time, it feels natural. Archangel Michael speaks with commanding presence in this moment. Alignment is not something you chase. It is something you enter when you stop resisting your design. Let that truth anchor you. Because everything you have gone through up to this point hath been leading you here, not to a place, not to a title, not to an external achievement, but to a state of being where you are finally in agreement with yourself. No more internal conflict. No more second-guessing every instinct. No more shrinking to fit expectations that never belonged to you. You begin to notice the shift in how you carry yourself. You no longer feel the need to explain your every move. You no longer seek approval before making decisions. You no longer hesitate when your intuition speaks. There is a steadiness in you now, a grounded presence, and it is not something you are forcing. It is something you have become. This is what happens when identity and purpose begin to align. You are no longer fragmented. You are integrated. Everything that once felt scattered, your experiences, your emotions, your perspective, begins to come together into something cohesive, something intentional, something powerful. You start to see how every phase of your life contributed to who you are now. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Everything had a role in shaping you into this version of yourself. And now, you are no longer trying to escape your past. You are using it. Archangel Michael declares, what you once questioned is now your foundation. What you once resisted is now your strength. This is where your confidence transforms. It is no longer based on external validation. It is built on internal alignment. And that kind of confidence cannot be shaken easily, because it is not dependent on outcomes. It is rooted in understanding. You begin to trust yourself in a way you never have before. Not blindly, not impulsively, but with awareness. You know when something aligns. You know when something does not. And instead of ignoring those signals, you act on them. That is alignment in motion. You stop forcing doors that do not open. You stop chasing paths that do not feel right. You stop entertaining connections that drain you. And instead you follow what resonates. Not based on comfort, but based on truth. There is also something else that begins to shift. Your relationship with uncertainty. Before, uncertainty created anxiety. It made you question whether you were on the right path. It made you hesitate, overthink, and doubt your direction. But now uncertainty does not hold the same weight, because you understand something deeper. You understand that your path is not meant to be fully predictable, and you are no longer afraid of that. Archangel Michael speaks again. You do not need to see the entire path. You only need to remain aligned in each step. This is where trust replaces fear. Not trust in outcome, but trust in your alignment. You know that as long as you are moving from a place of clarity, awareness, and truth, you are on the right path, even if you cannot see where it leads yet. And that changes how you move. You become more decisive, more intentional, more present. You are no longer waiting for perfect conditions. You are moving with what you know now. Because alignment does not require certainty about the future. It requires honesty in the present. And you have reached that point. You are no longer divided within yourself. You are no longer trying to be everything to everyone. You are no longer negotiating your identity to maintain connection. You are standing fully in who you are. And that presence, that alignment begins to shift everything around you. Because when you are aligned, your decisions become clearer. Your direction becomes stronger. Your energy becomes more focused. And the right opportunities begin to meet you not because you chased them, but because you became aligned with them. This is where your life begins to move differently. Not through force, but through flow. Archangel Michael declares with final authority, when you stand in alignment, what is meant for you will recognize you. And now, you are stepping into that reality. You are no longer searching for where you belong. You are becoming the place where purpose flows through. And that is the beginning of your true identity in motion. Type "I am aligned" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now activated. There are moments in life that feel ordinary on the surface but carry something deeper beneath them. Moments that seem like just another day, another date, another point in time. But in the spiritual realm they are anything but ordinary. They are marked, assigned, set apart. And July 1, 2026 is one of those moments. You may have entered this day like any other, without expectation, without awareness of what it truly represents. But now, something is shifting within you. Because this is not just a date on a calendar. This is a turning point. A line drawn between who you were and who you are becoming. Archangel Michael speaks now with unmistakable authority. This is the moment where preparation meets activation. What has been forming within you is now ready to move. Let that settle into your spirit. Because everything you have experienced up to this point, the isolation, the confusion, the breaking, the awakening, the resistance, the alignment, it was not leading to something distant. It was leading to now. This moment. This realization. This activation. There is something different about this phase you are entering. It is not just internal anymore. It is not just about understanding yourself. It is about stepping into expression. Because awareness without action remains incomplete. And now you are being called to move. Not recklessly. Not impulsively. But intentionally. With clarity. With direction. With purpose. You are no longer in the phase of questioning what your life means. You are stepping into the phase of living it. And that requires a different level of presence. A different level of responsibility. A different level of trust. Archangel Michael declares, what you have come to understand must now be embodied. You are no longer preparing. You are participating. This is where hesitation must be released. Because there may still be a part of you that wants more confirmation, more certainty, more assurance before taking the next step. But that is not how this moment works. Because this is not about having every answer. It is about trusting what you already know. You have already been shown enough. You have already felt enough. You have already experienced enough to recognize your direction. And now, the only thing left is movement. There is a shift happening in how opportunities will begin to appear in your life. They will not always look obvious. They will not always come with clear instructions. But they will align with what you have come to understand about yourself. And your responsibilities to recognize them. To move when they appear. To step forward when something resonates. Because this activation is not external. It is internal. It is the moment where you stop waiting and start responding. Archangel Michael speaks again. Activation is not something given to you. It is something you step into. The door is open, but you must walk through it. And this is where your awareness becomes action. Because now, you begin to make different choices. You begin to prioritize what aligns. You begin to create space for what is coming. You begin to move with intention instead of hesitation. This is not about drastic change overnight. It is about consistent alignment. Small decisions that reflect who you are becoming. Small steps that lead you in the direction you are meant to go. Because transformation is not a single moment. It is a series of aligned actions. And July 1, 2026 marks the beginning of that series. There is also something else you must understand about this activation. It is not just for you. It extends beyond you. Because what you carry is meant to impact others. Your clarity is meant to guide. Your awareness is meant to influence. Your presence is meant to shift environments. And now, you are stepping into a position where that influence begins to take form. You may not see the full extent of it yet, but it is already in motion. Archangel Michael declares, what begins with you will reach beyond you. This is not just your journey, it is your assignment. That is why this moment matters. Because it is not just about stepping into your identity. It is about stepping into your role. And that role requires you to move forward even when everything is not fully visible. Because clarity comes through movement, not before it. And now, you are ready. Not because everything is perfect, not because you have everything figured out, but because you are aligned enough to begin. This is the activation, the moment where you stop looking back and start moving forward with intention. And everything from this point on begins to unfold differently. Type "I step forward" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 707 is now activated. Now you stand at the edge of something greater than anything you have known before. Not the edge of uncertainty, but the edge of expansion. Because everything you have walked through, every moment of not fitting in, every season of isolation, every internal battle, every breaking point, every awakening, every resistance, every alignment, and now this activation, it has all been leading you to this final revelation. You were never meant to belong to a place. You were meant to carry something that allows you to belong everywhere. And that something is not external, is internal. It is what you carry within you. Archangel Michael speaks now with a presence that feels both powerful and undeniable. You do not search for belonging. You become it. Because what I placed within you is not limited by location. It is sustained by divine connection. Let that truth anchor deeply within your spirit. Because for so long, you searched for a place that felt like home. A space where everything aligned perfectly. A group where you felt completely understood. An environment where you could settle without feeling the need to move again. But now you understand home was never a place. It was a state of being. It was alignment. It was connection. It was the presence of something greater moving through you, guiding you, stabilizing you, no matter where you are. That is why you can walk into different spaces and still remain grounded. That is why you can connect across different environments without losing yourself. That is why you can move without feeling lost. Because your belonging is no longer dependent on where you are. It is rooted in who you are. And who you are is connected to something beyond limitation. Archangel Michael declares, when you carry heaven within you, no place can reject you. It can only reveal where you are meant to move next. This is where your freedom becomes undeniable. You are no longer trying to fit into environments. You are discerning them. You are no longer seeking validation. You are moving with awareness. You are no longer questioning your place. You are creating impact wherever you go. Because now, you understand your role. You are not here to blend in. You are here to influence. A shift. To carry something that changes the atmosphere of the spaces you enter. That is why your journey required so much depth. Because surface-level understanding could not sustain this level of movement. You needed clarity. You needed awareness. You needed alignment. And now you have it. This is the expansion, where everything you have become begins to extend beyond you. Your presence begins to affect people without effort. Your words begin to carry weight without force. Your energy begins to shift environments without explanation. Not because you are trying to do something, but because you are being who you were always designed to be. And that is enough. Archangel Michael speaks once more. Do not limit your reach by returning to what feels familiar. You were not called to remain. You were called to move, to expand, to carry what I placed within you into spaces that need it. And this is where your journey continues. Not in confusion. Not in searching, but in movement. Intentional. Guided. Aligned. You will still encounter new environments. New people. New opportunities. But now, you approach them differently. You are not asking, do I belong here? You are asking, is this aligned with what I carry? And that question changes everything. Because now, you are no longer adapting to spaces. You are evaluating them. You are choosing them. You are moving through them with clarity. And that is power. The kind of power that does not need recognition. The kind of power that does not need validation. The kind of power that simply exists because it is rooted in truth. And now, you understand the full message. You were never meant to fit in because your life was never meant to be confined. You were created to belong everywhere because what you carry transcends limitation. This is your mandate. This is your identity. This is your movement. And it has only just begun. Type "I belong everywhere" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2020 is now activated. As this message completes its journey through your spirit, understand this. What you have just received is not only for your transformation, it is a seed meant to multiply across countless lives still searching for where they belong. When you release your support through Super Thanks, with a PayPal link in the description and QR code, you are not giving to a message, you are planting into a global harvest of awakening souls. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over." And this is not theory. It is a living promise being activated through your obedience right now. I step forward in this moment because I know this message must reach those still wandering without clarity. Let your giving become your declaration. So now, move now, act now, and watch how heaven expands your provision, your influence, and your purpose beyond what you imagine.